to talk with you, Doug. How are you?
Doing well, thank you very much.
Great. Well, I have a
Great
question.
day.
I have a question for you for the Facebook Space Education page. What are your thoughts on the success of the Orion mission?
Oh, this is a huge leap for us today. It was very successful, and even the things, I know they're still crunching all the data. They'll be doing that for a number of days. But just even the little blips and tiny little failures and speed bumps that we discover are going to be helpful. And so overall, it was a very successful mission. The major parts of the mission, both riding the big rocket and then lighting the second stage and going to such a high altitude away from the Earth and through the Van Allen belts, the radiation belts that are a high concentration of radiation, and to be able to expose all of our computing systems and comm systems and avionics to that high radiation. Just tremendously successful day today in the way of test flight.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm sure those guys are going to be busy sifting through that data for
Absolutely.
quite some time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, can you share with us what is one of your most memorable moments in space?
Yeah, so probably, there's a lot of great science that we're doing up there, and I've gotten a chance to do spacewalks, and that's just an amazing experience as well. But probably the most life-changing experience in space, and I don't know if I can only speak for myself, but I think if you talk to other astronauts, they probably share the same, is looking out the windows at our Earth and our blue planet that's below us, and looking obliquely with the backdrop of deep space to be able to see Earth as a spaceship and as a living, breathing ball of life and motion and light, and otherwise vast sea. And so and really kind of frightening, kind of a dark and vast and frightening sea. And here we have this explosion of color in the daylight, and then at night it's like a dance of light in the nighttime with lightning flashes, looks like paparazzi light bulbs going off all over the planet, where there are storms and aurora that's kind of moving around the poles and kind of up into, we actually travel through, it looks like rain in some areas, these electrons coming down in the northern and southern lights. And so probably certainly the most life-changing for me, and the most effect on my emotion and sort of my thinking and my perspective is certainly looking at the Earth from that vantage point of space.
The beauty of space.
I think we all sort of, if we didn't look up physically because we weren't at the launch pad or we weren't looking up but watching the capsule come back under chutes, we certainly looked up in our emotion, in our dream of a better tomorrow, of the possibilities that exist out there for us to get involved in and to work together on and to collaborate on. And so I think collectively, certainly all of us here at NASA and all of us that are sort of involved in this kind of business, we were all kind of looking skyward.
I don't know about you, but I got my boarding pass, so
yes,
my name was sent up.
Absolutely, your name was on there. You know what? One thing I found interesting, there was actually lunar soil from some of the Apollo missions that were on board this mission today. So they made a journey back out through the Van Allen belts and returned again to the Earth. And so, and you know, what causes us to do that as humans? You know, it's this resurgence of the human spirit, I think, and this is something that we can all get involved in, and we can all play a part. We can all write our own story. We can write a verse to this incredible mission onto Mars. And so
absolutely, it's a journey to Mars.
Absolutely, and I think it's just because we're all really sort of kids at heart, and you look at the innocence of a child and how curious they are. You let a child go, and usually as a parent you're kind of chasing them around. No, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, because they're naturally curious. And when you put a child out in the forest they'll kick over stumps and kick at ant piles and turn over rocks, and that's because they're naturally curious. And I think today a lot of that came back to us. As adults, we sort of, over the years, the years and experiences and maybe some failures in our lives, cause us to be jaded and a little more cynical when we look at childish sort of dreams, and so now I think that we all sort of collectively looked up together today, saying like, this really is a pretty cool time in our lives where we can be involved in something like this, and maybe we can move a little bit farther from the caves. Maybe we can learn to work and live together. Maybe we can learn to take better care of our spaceship Earth.
Absolutely. Well, you're an ISS astronaut, and as we sit here in the ISS mock-up facility in the Johnson Space Center, I have an outside question for you for the space education page. So we'll go to Lynne Zielinski.
Hi, my name is Lynne Zielinski, and I have a question. What do you think about the new space ventures like Enterprise in Space?
It's an exciting time. It's like we here at NASA are very excited about including everyone, because this is a journey that will excite, inspire a generation, and even a generation beyond that, of new scientists, engineers, explorers, new breakthroughs in medicine and engineering, what we know about material science, how to build things smaller and stronger and faster. And when we begin to create this excitement in private lives, in private companies, and when we have this big mission that we can go on together to another planet, when we can study our Earth and bring back these things we discover to make life better here on Earth, I'm just terrifically excited about these new space enterprises.
I'm the education program manager for Enterprise in Space, and I'm dealing with a lot of space education, and I thought I would ask you a question about what do you think we should do in terms of space education around the world to get students interested and inspired and excited about being able to fly in space, get their experiments to fly into space, and to just all around be more space activists. Thank you.
Well, that's a great question as well, Lynn. And I kind of think back to I think it's an old African proverb that we are all human beings. We're part of this human experience. And there's nothing in the human experience that is alien to us because we are human. And I'm human, you're human, the children in our classrooms, children of all ages, are human as well, and they're part of this human experience. And we try to encourage people from here at NASA, and I think we should be doing this in our classes, in all our classes, that all of this is accessible to them as well. And it's up to us and incumbent upon us as engineers, as scientists, as astronauts, as teachers, to let our kids know and to remind our kids, like, hey, you could do that as well. There's no reason why you can't do that. There's no reason why you can't study science. There's no reason why you can't use your own curiosity to explore and write your own verse to this wonderful story of exploration and discovery.
Well, thank you for those questions, Lynn. Those were wonderful questions. And we'll move on to a question from Kate Meridith at the Sloan Digital Sky Survey.
Hi, my name is Kate Meridith, and I am an astronomy educator with the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. And we're about to launch a new website called Voyages, and on that website we get students involved with the database. We are also looking at engineering aspects of astronomy, and I'm wondering, from your perspective as an astronaut, what are the most exciting areas in engineering and astronomy on the horizon for students?
That's an excellent question, Kate. And for me, I had my mind just completely opened when I went to space and got a chance to realize how two-dimensionally we live. Just an ordinary life. We kind of think this way, and then we don't really look up because we're kind of pinned to the planet with gravity, and so we don't think about the sky above us. We don't think microscopically at the ground below us and in the world around us, and we tend to kind of pigeonhole ourselves into a two-dimensional world, and sometimes that kind of drags on us so much that it actually engulfs our thought as well. So we don't allow ourselves to think beyond these two dimensions, and so the biggest thing that I think happened to me, that just sort of emotionally, and I'm sort of I'm an amateur astronomer, really. I love studying the stars, but when I looked at, let's take Orion for instance, the constellation Orion, and I still every night that there's a starry sky or clear night, I love looking at the constellation Orion, and it's easy to find. You got the belt there with the 3 stars, and of course Betelgeuse and all the crazy colors and everything, But when I went to space and was able to see this star field now in 3 dimension, I could see it without looking through the atmosphere, and I could see the differing variation and intensity of the lights of the we you can begin to see the depth now. And so I could see the moon not as a flat plate anymore. I could, we say, I think it's a full moon today even, we talk about romantic walks on the beach with the full moon, and we celebrate the full moon, and because it's beautiful. And when we could see it on a clear night sky, but we really, if you think about it, we really think of it as a flat plate, really, because we're kind of stuck here in this, in this two-dimensional realm of thought and everything. But when you can see it from space, when you can see it through a telescope, and then all of a sudden you can see that it's really kind of a ball, just like we are a ball here on Earth. When you can look through a telescope and see the rings of Saturn, it looks like a painting. And when we can show these to our kids, it allows them to see, like, hey, we really are in a 3-dimensional world, and they can begin to open up their thought to that 3rd dimension as well. One thing I thought was striking about Orion, and I actually, I discovered this as an astronaut, I'm kind of ashamed to admit, but when I looked at the bright stars in Orion and found out later that, you know that 3 of those stars in that constellation are actually closer to us on Earth than they are to each other. And that blows my mind. As an engineer and as a scientist, I mean, when you think about that, the 3 of those stars, one of them is actually 3 times closer to Earth than it is to the other stars. And that just, I mean, when you think about that in that dimension, because we look at Orion, we look at the other constellations sort of as a flat plate, as a 2-dimension, and we can't see it because we can't get our mind around it as having depth. And when we can release that, when we can see it through a telescope, when we can have kids begin to open up their mind and dream about it in their thought, only then we'll be able to release the chains on our thinking and be able to experience our world, our Earth, our near space, our outer space, our moon, the rest of our planets, going to Mars, and looking at stars through the telescopes. Only then can we really experience that 3rd dimension and open up our thought to unlimited possibilities.
Hi, I have one more question for you. In another project that I'm involved with called Skynet Junior Scholars, I have encountered a young person who is blind and would like to be the first blind person to orbit the Earth. I was wondering if you have any words of inspiration for her. Thanks a lot.
As a thinker.
Okay. That's a great question, Kate. And I read a quote one time from Helen Keller, actually, that said, if you could only see what I hear. And I think that sometimes we, the senses that we have that takes in the world around us, until one of those is gone, do we ever really see the true intensity of the world around us? I remember I'm certainly not comparing myself to not being able to see with my eyes, but in space, one of the things that I experienced was sort of a degradation in the sense of smell and the sense of taste, and nothing really tasted very good. And I began to think and wonder about my dreams of back home on Earth and how I missed the smells of Earth, and in the way of sight, and to be an encouragement to this blind student. I can only imagine the things that you hear and the things that you feel in the world around us that is probably passing me by because I take it for granted. And so I would just encourage you in your dreams, whatever it is that you can see, because in your dreams you can see, and you can see where you're going to be, and you can see where you want to go. And so I just encourage you to just kind of follow that passion, that area of passion, and to open up your thoughts to the world around you, the things that you can feel, the things that you can hear, the strife that you can feel and the tension that you can feel in your spirit, and how you can become a part of relieving that and making life better here on Earth. And perhaps it's as a scientist, and some of the things that we can learn as scientists and engineers. Some of it doesn't require sight. Some of it requires just vision, and vision takes us way beyond but what we can see with our own eyes, and so it takes us to a realm where we can open up our thought to new expression and new ideas.
Well, thanks, Doug. Those were all of our questions from our Facebook followers on the Space Education page. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
My pleasure.
For everyone listening, the journey to Mars is definitely continuing, so follow these guys at NASA to keep updated on the journey to Mars and more information about Orion. Thank you again, Doug.
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And one thing I wanted to leave you with, is that still on? There's one thing I wanted to leave you with is, we select astronauts usually when they're young to mid-30s, and so we believe, and we are marching toward stepping foot on Mars in about 20 years. That means those first people walking on Mars, on the surface of Mars, are somewhere in our classrooms right now.
That's amazing.
They're probably likely a student between the ages of 5 and 18, somewhere in our schools, and that may be you, and maybe your kids, and maybe somebody you know as a teacher, and maybe one of your students. And so when you project out to like that, then you begin to see that we are all on this journey together. Now, that excites me to know that those first folks stepping foot on Mars are some of our brightest students somewhere in our classrooms today. So study hard.